today still resides in the hearts of many as one of the greatest struggles for independence in the United States' short history. Americans and Tejanos, including others in the Texan Revolution against all odds, proved that the fight for liberty under tyranny or unjust rule will live on forever, no matter the oppressor. Common phrases such as "Remember the Alamo" or "Death to Santa Anna," cried out by Texan defenders during the siege, live on in society today through books and movies. I have received this certificate from when I was born due to my great-great-great-grandfather, Robert White, who was a part of the Battle of the Alamo, so I got more interested in exploring and finding information about this battle. So, in the early 1700s, the Spanish had laid claim to parts of the current-day New Mexico and Texas area in the Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819, when America acquired Florida. In 1716, the Spaniards began setting and forming small missions and settlements in Texas. One of these early settlements became the famous Alamo, close to a century later. As greedy Americans looking for land slowly traveled west, they gradually dispersed throughout Texas. The Spanish had always had the idea of loyal subjects living on this mostly empty land, but Mexico winning their independence from Spain thwarted their opportunity. Americans were flocking to Texas for cheap land because it was really just for $30. Each settler received 4,428 acres of land and only had to follow a few rules. Settlers that moved into Mexico had to be of the Catholic faith and willing to be Mexicanized. The Mexican government wanted the settling Americans to swear allegiance to Mexico, but most settlers disregarded the idea of integration and the idea of embracing Mexican society. American settlers had the idea that they could do whatever they wanted simply because they were American. The little Mexican presence in Texas also encouraged Texans to do as they pleased. Issues over slavery, immigration, and local rights became serious topics of discussion. The debate over slavery was almost controversial because Mexico impossidiated all slaves in 1830 and prohibited any slavery in Texas and the bringing of slaves into the territory. American Texans did not abide by these laws and did not free their slaves and continued to bring slaves into the territory with no regard for the law. The Mexican Constitution, adopted in 1284, had some elements resembling U.S. Constitution, but also included vast influences from the Spanish Constitution of 1812. Then in 1830, the Mexican government passed a law banning us citizens from settling anywhere in Mexican territory. Texan American boldly defied laws for years, but eventually Mexico was ready to assert its dominance. In 1835, the then dictator-like Mexican President Antonio López de Santa Anna took away all local rights of Texans and began raising an army to put down the Texan disobedience. The following year, Texas declared their independence and raised their Lone Star flag. The rule of Santa Anna, commonly known as the Age of Santa Anna, quickly turned into a dictatorship in 1835. He then suspended the Constitution of 1824, and the settlers felt abandoned and betrayed by the Mexican government. The Texas Revolution officially began in October of 1835 when Americans in Gonzales refused to return cannon given to them by Mexicans to protect themselves from Indians. Texan Americans fought off nearly 100 cavalrymen, greatly increasing the confidence of anyone questioning the rebellion against Mexico. Texas then began systematically clearing the Texas religion of Mexican soldiers. An army formed called the Army of the People made up the colonists and anyone willing to support their causes of independence. As the army of Texans, Americans, and Tejanos grew, they needed leadership. At one point, almost 600 soldiers devoted to the cause of Texan independence fought in the Army of the People. Stephen F. Austin was placed in control of the Volunteer Army of Texas and swept through Texas, eliminating Mexican presence. The army swept up missions along the San Antonio River, gaining tremendous momentum and confidence. As the army arrived at the city of San Antonio and the Alamo, they surrounded the Mexican army, ready to force them out. The Mexican army had about 20 cannons posed for battle, so the Texan army hatched a plan to guarantee victory. For a month, they surrounded the city and Alamo while soldiers arrived and left as they pleased. When the Texans finally succeeded, they had effectively eliminated the lost significant Mexican strongholds in Texas. Santa Anna that day had arrived 700 miles south the day the siege began of San Antonio, and was forming an army to rid Texas of the foreign pirates. He was ready to